Let's get the show on the road. Morning. Welcome, everybody. Monday morning yet again. So this morning we're talking about firefighters and fighting fires, and how do you go about fighting fires in your life, in your business. I think was the key topic, not actual literal fires, but fires that have been caused either by yourself or by someone else in your environment. So yeah, firefighting, interesting topic. I'm not sure. Me, I suppose I just put the head down and then get stuck in and try and sort out the issues. But some people might have different ways of dealing with fighting with their fires. So Jasper, so I think we go get across to you first and find out how your firefighting skills are and what you do when those situations crop up in your life.
I was hoping you pick on so I can just make a few notes, because like Trevor, I also didn't know what the topic was. But you lit the fire for me, because now I have to think fast and furious. And it's probably another word for handling crises. And I think you don't know. You can theoretically prepare for crises when it hasn't happened yet, and is anyway not the kind of topic that you want to dwell on when you are in a good space. But it's only when the crisis is there that you actually understand the components of the crisis, and then you can deal with the components separately. So I think I've never been a firefighter. I like watching some of those series on firefighters and what they have to go through, and you have to be trained. So I think the words that come up for me is it's a team effort, it's equipment needed, and you can have all the right equipment on your side. If the right equipment is faulty on the site where you are connecting your hoses, and there's no water there, then all of a sudden you're also stopped. So it's what I want to say is it can become complicated, but then in the end you still have to do what you can with what you have. And some of the fires you win, and some of the fires burn down. And I'm reminded of some stories that I read. I don't know if it was Edison, I think, who played around with the filament in what now that we have globes, but he also was an inventor for many other things. And I think one time in his life he had a factory fire that was beyond control, and he then went and woke up his family to say, "Come and watch this. You're never going to see a fire like that again in your lifetime." And they just stood there and watched the fire burn down everything. But he didn't make it a sad occasion. He just said, this is a historic occasion. Let's just see what happened. So I think as an introduction to the topic, probably it's you do the best as you can, but if you can't solve the fire and you can't fight the fire, enjoy the moment.
Thanks, Jasper. Yeah, good way to deal with crises in your business. Sit back and warm your hands in the blaze and enjoy the moment. Yeah, interesting approach to fighting fires. So, Edward, how do you fight fires?
Yeah, I quite like this subject because it gives me a chance to talk about two multi-day races. I've taken the sort of slant that firefighting's about protecting your reputation. And I think we started off by talking about the problem that Coca-Cola are having with their less white training and the sort of the social media storm about that. And I remember quite a few years ago, an American company decided to organize loads of multi-day races throughout the world. And they asked this UK guy to organize an event in South Africa, as it was. And I think us in the know knew it would be a disaster. And lo and behold, it was a disaster. And a couple of well-known amateur South African runners have been invited to run it for free because they publicize it. And they spoke out and sort of said, you know, how bad it was organised, and the organiser waded in and slated them off and really had a go at them. And of course, then everyone piled in, protecting the two South African guys because they were just, you know, and it became an absolute nightmare for the organisers. And I think the first thing about firefighting is don't put any more fuel on the fire. And also, if you are going to use a fire extinguisher, use the right one. Because using a water extinguisher on, say, a fat fire is not going to help very much, or an electrical fire is not going to help so much. So don't put any more fuel on, and use the right, whatever it is. Yeah, I know, fire extinguisher. And the other race I want to talk about, and it's pretty tragic actually, was in Australia. There was a bushfire, and some of the competitors got caught in the bushfire, and one of them, she was severely burnt, 60% burns. And it led to a big court case, and the organisers were found liable. They were lucky actually, it didn't get much publicity. But they kind of drew it all out, and I will never ever do one of their races because of that. But what did happen was, because they were found liable, all other race organisers, where there's a chance of a bushfire, give a briefing and tell you how to deal with a bushfire. And the interesting thing about coping with a bushfire is you cannot run away from it. You cannot run fast enough to run away from a bushfire. If you get caught in a bushfire and there's nowhere to go, and don't climb higher, because the fire will just chase you higher, and that's where all the carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide is. The way to deal with a bushfire is actually cover yourself as much as possible, damp yourself down if possible, and run straight towards it, which is counterintuitive. Because actually the fire is only about 1 meter or 2 wide, and behind the fire there is nothing, because it's all been burnt. There's no more fire behind the fire. So you might get your little fingers tinged a bit, but you'll survive. If you try and run away, it'll engulf you. And I think that's the same with reputational damage. Don't hide from it. Don't run away from it. Take it straight on. Don't add any more fuel to the fire. Damp it down if you can with some water, but don't run away from it. Otherwise, it will engulf you. Take it on, deal with it, come out the other side alive. So that's really all my thoughts around firefighting. Is actually, just deal with it, cope with it, take it on, don't ignore it, and you're fine.
Great, thanks, Ed. Some great analogies there as well. Yeah, it made me think of a couple of different kinds of entities. All the spin doctors we see in politics of fighting fires perpetually with the rubbish that many of the people that they trying to aid tend to spout, and they get quite good at it. But another company which I think is actually brilliant at it in this country, and they now international brand as well, as Nando's. I mean, their counterintuitive advertising, their ad agency, I think, is absolutely brilliant with the way they pick up on things and spin them. And I know a few other organizations have tried to do similar things and got their fingers horribly burnt. So it's an interesting skill to have. And I think those pointers you gave are great ones. So, Leo, many fires down there in the Cape at the moment?
No fires here. It's absolutely just a beautiful day, and absolutely no mist. Beautiful. Yeah. So firefighting. I think for me, when I thought of firefighting, I thought, fires will happen, and I think that's part of a reality of life. And is there a way that we can be better prepared? And I think for me, what I've learned over the last 3 years is that for me, I can be better prepared. And what helped me prepare better was mindfulness. In that what mindfulness did for me was move away from reaction to response. And you know, I loved what Edward had to say, is run towards the fire, because it's counterintuitive. And so a reaction will be always running away from the fire, because you know, it's what we would do. But if we spend time to become prepared in some way or another. Now, for me, it was mindfulness. So being constantly faced with criticism was my fire, and I reacted badly to it. And I think what mindfulness did for me was move away from judgment, was move towards an inner calm and an inner way to respond. And what happened is that I was now able to respond quicker than I would normally have done. So in the past, I would have reacted. It would have taken 3 weeks to get out of the whole slump, and then I would move forward. We're now, up to now, you know, I'm able to probably, if it's a bad fire, I you know, it would take me you know, half a day or a day to get back onto my feet in a centered kind of way. And it took time, you know. I mean, it certainly didn't happen right from the beginning. And I think if we can be like the firefighters in their training. So the firefighters, they have a big building where they have to storm into when it's like hugely hot. And now they have to learn to trust their training and to trust their ability to put out this fire in this intensity where normal people just wouldn't be able to do that. You know, I think of sometimes the SEAL training. I saw a video on YouTube where in SEAL training, to overcome fear, the person has to fall backwards from a height of, I don't know, 10 meters or whatever, into the water, and it's exceptionally frightening. And many SEALs, I mean, you know, these are the top people already, are still frightened by that experience. And then obviously once you break through that fear, you know, then you can face those things. And I think if we can learn to become prepared, you know, so learn to fight fires before the fires come. Learn the art of going into the fire with your hoses and your proper extinguishers. Learn what the right extinguishers are before the fire happens. You know, and then you'll be able to handle fires better when they come, even though you might still not succeed 100%. So that's my little contribution today.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think preparation, training, practice, all good things, and being aware of what can happen and what you need to do to mitigate it. And you know, you spoke about mindfulness. I think that comes down to an element of that as well, doesn't it? It's being able to stand back mentally from a situation and review in an instant before you need to actually get stuck in there and get going. So, Trevor, looks like we're getting a bit bossies in the chat box, but you know, you started it, so you better take it up from there.
Yeah, well, it was Ed's interpretation of fynbos, and when he was talking brand, it just struck me in my head that brand is brand, and that was fire. So that's where I got a cryptic connection there. But some of you don't know how my mind is wired, so you get confused. As Leo was talking, what went through my head was firefighting, which in this particular topic is around people. And I think most fires are just spontaneous. and tend to come from people who are full of tripe, to be quite honest. So we shouldn't even think of using hose pipes and water and all that sort of nonsense. We should do the one thing that kills a fire almost immediately, and I disagree with Ed. I think you should just throw more benzene, more turpentine, more alcohol, more spirits, and just onto the thing, because as Leo said, once a fire starts in a group of people, it can take months to get over. So you may as well just kill the blooming thing by turning it into a huge blooming explosion and blaze. And what we used to do in our army days is we used to throw a hand grenade into the thing to take oxygen out of it. Simple as that. So if you think about it, fires tend to come from people being full of codswallop. Just blow it up, get to what the main point is, and then sort it out from there. Those people whose noses are out of joint, they're always going to be out of joint, because if you take 3 weeks or 6 months to actually sort it out, they never get off their particular position if they want to hang on that. It's extremely difficult to get people off whatever their points of view are, unless they want to get off the point of view. So you know what, you may as well push them off like the seals. I'm sure that if they don't fall off backwards, someone would have pushed them off backwards, because they don't have time to stuff around in that type of environment. So I say firefighting, when it comes to people, just blow it up as quickly as you can so you can get over and done with and get on with whatever direction you need to move on, or the environment needs to move on as quickly as possible.
Interesting question. Yeah, the danger, of course, with blowing it up is it could literally blow up in your face.
That's the point.
The question is, do you make it better or do you make it worse? Yeah, I don't know. And I think we've seen that work both ways, haven't we? In the media and social media, you know, people who've reacted, as Leo says, to some bad rap in social media, you know, have literally blown it up, and it's gone horribly pear-shaped as a result of that reaction. So yeah, in some cases it might work. You know, chucking grenades into fires, I can see that perhaps working if you're standing far enough away from it. You could have a good arm to launch a grenade into a fire and hope you don't get some backlash. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that is. I mean, I've seen some very interesting inventions actually specifically to deal with rail fires, where you've got a little capsule that you just toss into the fire and it just sucks up all the oxygen and fire done. I think you know, that's clever tech. Hand grenades, perhaps a little bit crude, but effective. So it's interesting. Yeah, I think, you know, that's I think the key for me when it comes to firefighting, whatever the fire is, and I think Leo touched on it, and that's not to react instinctively, because I think that's when the problems actually occur, is when you allow that reptilian brain and the subconscious to take over, and those instinctive things happen. As Ed says, you run away from the fire instead of running towards it. You know, what happens if you're walking through the bush and you come across a lion? Last thing you want to do is run away from the lion, because that just puts all his instincts into high gear, and he comes after you. Not an easy thing to do. Often very not, you know, definitely not an easy thing to do when you're faced with that immediate crisis, as it were. Yeah, so it's an interesting way of actually dealing with things. You know, it reminds me of a situation Trev and I had, what, about 11 years ago, Trev, if I remember correctly. We had 3 guys wander into your house with firearms and stick them to our heads. It was an interesting little exercise in not reacting, and learning how to deal with that particular crisis. And it was another lesson in life that I wouldn't like to repeat, I must be honest, but it was nonetheless an exercise, I suppose, in firefighting of a different kind, wasn't it? Anyway, enough of that. So Lee's abandoned us for a couple of days, as you know. She's off gallivanting somewhere. I think down to your part of the world, Leah. I'm not sure, but so topic for tomorrow. Do we have any thoughts? Yes, Ed.
Actually, I did have one, and then Trevor gave me another. Because when I was in business, and kind of I wanted to things to change because they weren't that good, or I wanted different thinking, I used to throw a hand grenade in and just see what came out, because then you could just grab something and then move with it. And I wondered whether we could sort of use that to discuss disruptive technologies. Or the other thought I had was that thing about Coca-Cola. It had been going on for a long time with other companies. It was only Coca-Cola that got the flack. And actually, I felt sorry for Coca-Cola. And I wondered whether there's anything in there that some brands just attract criticism. But so there's two thoughts, and make up what you will.
All right, great. So chucking grenades on the boardroom table sounds like an interesting exercise. And yeah, I suppose you can dovetail that with your second thought as well, can't you? Because why do some brands attract more negative impact than others? And as I say, coming back to my comment about Nando's up front and how they've just seemed to get their spin absolutely perfect almost every single time, and then you get an organization with the might and the power of a Coca-Cola, and they seem to regularly get it wrong, and as do others. So yeah, let's go with that. Chucking virtual hand grenades onto boardroom tables, and we'll pick that one up in the morning. So all right, guys, have a great day further. Try not to run away from any fires and get too close to any exploding hand grenades, and hopefully we'll see you in one piece tomorrow. Have a good one. Cheers.